Hey everyone, welcome back to Miniature Painting 101, a series of videos where I teach you all about painting miniatures, miniature painting, and everything in between. Yes. And this is part 69, Tyranid Carapace. So painting the armor parts of the Tyranid model. I'll be going over all the steps. And today I'll be painting this Termagant model, one of the base troops for the Tyranid army. Since this is my Tyrannuary painting challenge, I figured it'd be an appropriate painting. So today I'll be using 4 colors. ABADDON Black is going to be my base / shadow color. CALEDOR Sky is going to be actually the true Carapace color. And LOTHERN Blue and White Scar are going to be the ticking or feathering pattern on the Carapace. And obviously you can apply this to whatever color scheme you want. So first of all, I will start off with my shading color. Now what I do for my shading colors, I like to take a color that is slightly darker than my Carapace color. So I'll be using black in this one, and you can use black for any dark color, if you're doing reds, dark greens, dark blues. But if you're doing lighter colors, what I recommend is going one shade darker than this for your shading color for the first part, or use your Carapace color and then add a shade or wash over that, which will darken it as well into the recesses. I'm just going to use black in this case. Black is a pretty standard color if you want just deep, dark recesses and crevices. Usually I would just do Cantor blue and then add a null and oil shade over it to darken it even more. But for this example, I just want a little bit more extreme shading, so I will use ABADDON Black instead. But as I said, you can replace this step easily with any of the, with your base color, a slightly darker, or you just go with the Carapace color and add a shade. And then for the CALEDOR Sky, what I do is I thin it down. Once again, I usually use thin down paints. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a little bit of that ABADDON Black in the edges, and I'm just going to build up 2 very thin coats of this CALEDOR Sky, so that way you'll have a nice transition from the black to the blue, and also there will show some great shading in the recesses of the model. So as you can see, I intentionally leave a gap between the CALEDOR Sky and the edges of the next part of the Carapace. And I recommend doing this regardless. I usually do 2 thin coats on my Tyranids whenever I'm painting the Carapace, and I recommend it. Regardless of your color scheme, you can easily change this towards your color scheme. It's the steps that I feel that are the most applicable in this particular tutorial. So as you can see, it's a bit thin down. As you can see, it's not very thick, but it will go over the black with relative ease. And that's the thing, you don't want to go too extreme. That's why I wouldn't go black over if I was going to do a yellow, I would not paint it black. And then for the second coat, all I'm doing is focusing more on the tops of the ridges and working my way down towards the recesses and just building a nice gradient of the blue. And that's pretty much it for the Carapace colors. Now that we've got our shading and we've got our color on the Carapace, it's in good shape. So as I said, start at the top of the ridges and work your way towards the recesses of each part of the Carapace. And of course, leave that shading in the recesses and along the cracks. So next we're going to do LOTHERN Blue. What you do is for the ticking or the feathering pattern, depending on what you call it, I usually use 2 different colors. The first one is darker than the second. And so the first one I'm going to use LOTHERN Blue, and I'm going to show you 2 different methods on how to get the same ticking pattern. The first one is the slower, more precise method of just taking a 00 brush or a really fine detail brush and just doing 1 tick at a time along the Carapace. Starting, you can start at either edge and just pull your way towards it, but just do a little 1 stroke at a time along the edges of the Carapace to get that nice ticking pattern, and going perpendicular to the line, to the actual edging of the Carapace itself. And this is the most standard method that people do. It's very precise, you get the nice precise lines, but it's also the most time consuming, especially if you're painting a large monstrous creature for the Tyranid army. So the second method I'm going to show you saves a lot of time. It doesn't get the same precise ticking pattern, but actually gets a more rugged pattern. So if you have a brush like this one that tends to separate its bristles really easily if you put a lot of tension on it, what I like to do is I like to thin down my paints even more than I normally do for this LOTHERN Blue. And then what I do is I just dip my brush in it and then drag it along a towel, separating the bristles but getting the paint equally distributed amongst the bristles. And as you can see now, the paint is on the bristles and they're quite separated. And then I can take this exact brush and do that same dragging pattern, start a little bit up and drag towards the edge of the Carapace, and it actually produces a really, really nice ticking pattern. The key is just to thin down your paints even more than you normally would, just a little bit more. Not necessarily airbrush level, but just a little bit more than normal. And it said just separate the bristles using a towel and you're good to go. And then you can use this method to save a lot of time, especially when painting the larger monstrous creatures. And you don't get the exactly precise pattern, but what you do get is a really nice variation in the tickings. So it looks great and it saves a whole lot of time. And that's it. So I'm going to repeat this pattern with white scar. So the second ticking pattern is always lighter than the first typically. And I'm just going to do the same thing. Thin it down slightly with thinner medium. And then once again, separate the bristles and then repeat this process over the entire miniature. And as you can see, I try to go, not necessarily between the lines of the previous one, but I try to interact with them. Some will overlap and some will go between. And that way you get a nice interaction between the light blue and the whites, and they end up looking really nice in contrast to the dark blue. But as I said, the key to this tutorial is not necessarily my color scheme, it is the way I'm doing things. So if you're doing, regardless of what color, I recommend starting with a shadowing color. So one step darker than your Carapace color, or at just a shade to it. And then go with your Carapace color, 2 thin coats. And then do this ticking pattern with either method, either with a precise 00 brush or my time-saving method, which as you can see produces a great color on this one, and it looks fantastic in the end. You can't tell what method it was used, and it was done in about a tenth of the time with my large brush method. And as you see, there's some good shadowing in it, and it really does make the edges of the Carapace really stick out. So as always, thank you so much for watching this episode of Miniature Painting 101. I really hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for part 70, which is just around the corner, next week as always. But if you can't wait for next week, check out The Warp. Click on the link for a free 14-day trial to my premium YouTube channel, where not only we get to see the next 6 months worth of Miniature Painting 101 episodes, you get to see over 50 start to finish painting tutorials, my Airbrush 101 series, battle reports, face-off episodes, and just some awesome wargaming content. So go ahead and check out The Warp. I think you'll love it. So thank you very much once again. Until next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting, everyone.